Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about Bitcoin. And more importantly, why Bitcoin will always crash, and what Americans need to understand about how money actually works. This is not about hating Bitcoin. This is about understanding why Bitcoin can never be a foundation of a national financial system. To understand that, we first need to understand what money is, who controls it, and how it moves through the economy. Let's start with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not controlled by the US government. It is not controlled by the US Treasury. It is not controlled by the Federal Reserve. That may sound like freedom, but for a nation, that is a problem. A country needs to be able to respond to financial crises, stabilize markets, control inflation, and protect its currency. Bitcoin cannot do those things. Its supply cannot be adjusted in emergencies. Its price moves wildly, and there is no authority that can step in when things break. That is why Bitcoin cannot be used as a reserve asset by the United States. Reserve assets must be stable, predictable, and controllable. Bitcoin is none of those. That's why Bitcoin will always crash. Not because it has no value, but because it is detached from the systems that stabilize money. Now let's talk about those systems. In the United States, money responsibility is split into two different roles. One role is called fiscal responsibility. The other is called monetary responsibility. They sound similar, but they are not the same. Fiscal responsibility is handled by Congress and the US Treasury. Fiscal policy answers this question. How does the government collect and spend money? Fiscal policy includes taxes, government spending, the federal budget, government debt. Congress decides how much money is spent, what it is spent on, and how much is collected in taxes. The Treasury collects taxes, pays government bills, issues government bonds, and manages national debt. A simple way to think about it is this. Fiscal policy is the government's checkbook. Monetary responsibility is handled by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not part of Congress and not part of the Treasury. Monetary policy answers this question. How much money exists in the economy, and how expensive is it to borrow? The Federal Reserve controls interest rates, money supply, bank reserves, emergency lending. The Federal Reserve does not collect taxes, pass laws, or decide the budget. Its job is to control inflation, prevent financial panic, stabilize the banking system. A simple way to think about it is this. Monetary policy is the economy's thermostat. This separation exists for a reason. If one group controlled spending, taxes, interest rates, and money creation, that would be too much power in one place. So the system is split. Congress and the Treasury decide where money goes.
Let me just ask you something right now. Do you think the system should be split? Sorry to interrupt your listening experience, and I hope that you're enjoying it. This is the society, past, present, and future. I would like for us to be able to understand how things work in society. Money is, and the economy is a big part of society. So it is imperative that we understand what's going on. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I wasn't aware. I'm at the risk of sounding ignorant. I just wasn't aware that our monetary system was split the way it is. On one hand, it makes sense that you want balance so that no one system can like take control of everything and go rogue, right? Because you say that's too much power for one department to handle. However, if the two parties don't get along, they can start doing things to impair the other sides just so that they can get what they want. There's still corruption that can go on. Basically, at the end of the day, is what I'm trying to get at. So, would it have been better for us to just have all of the control in one area? Or do you think it's fine the way it is? We just need to know how to communicate better together. I really do want your response. If you put it in the comment section there, I would appreciate that. All right, let's continue listening.
The Federal Reserve decides how money flows. Now, let's talk about how this connects to housing, because housing is one of the biggest ways money moves through the American economy. Let's say you want to buy a home. The house costs $300,000. Most people don't pay that all at once. They make a down payment. A common down payment is 20%, which would be $60,000. The remaining $240,000 comes from a bank loan, also called a mortgage. You go to a bank. The bank looks at your income, your credit history, your existing debt, and how much money you're putting down. If you qualify, the bank gives you the loan. At that moment, the bank has used a large amount of its own money. Banks do not want that money tied up for 30 years. If it were, they couldn't make many loans. Their money would be locked up and they would carry all the risk. So banks need a way to get their money back quickly. This is where Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac come in. They were created to keep mortgage money moving. They do not lend money to buyers. They buy mortgages from banks. So after a bank gives you a loan, it sells that loan to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. The bank gets its money back. Now it can make another loan to another family. This is what people mean when they say housing is subsidized.
All right. So, again, I hope you're enjoying the content. I hope you're getting a better understanding. I know I am, because now I'm able to see even how a program like that could eventually become corrupted. This is bringing a lot of understanding to our system, because at the end of the day, our system is ran by human beings for now. I'm not sure how much AI will be implemented in the decision making in the future, but for right now, humans are at the helm, and we're just so unpredictable because of what may motivate us, right? We don't know if it's money. We don't know if it's power. We don't know if it's blackmail. And we have to consider these things, right? Everything cannot be just chalked up to conspiracy theory. We have to consider someone else may intentionally put someone in a compromising position so that they may be influenced to make decisions that's good for some and may not be good for others.
Subsidized does not mean free money. It means reduced risk for banks, safer lending, and lower interest rates. That benefit flows through the system. After buying mortgages, those loans are grouped together. They are sold to large investors. Those investors accept lower returns because the loans are guaranteed. Lower returns for investors mean lower interest rates for buyers. This buying and selling happens in the secondary mortgage market. You never see it, but your mortgage rate depends on it.
All right, let's just stop. At the end of the day, once the lenders found out that the government will buy the loans, that's automatic money for them. So they're way more inclined to make these loans, even if they're considered risky, to someone who has not showed a history of good payments on time. Because the government is just going to come. That's the government's problem now, right? So the government's going to pay for it. Once I sign off and I give this person a loan, now it's the government's problem. Now, something had to be put in place before the 2008 crisis. So I guess without really knowing what was in place, why did it happen I'm going to say again, or why did it happen at all? What was the fail safes? What was the problem? Now, I know about the Dodd-Frank Act, and I know about I think it's FSOC, but I also know that Donald Trump, he later came and loosened up the control mechanisms in place so that this doesn't happen again, right? And my point is, he had to do that for a reason, right? Did you do that so that people that you may know in the banking industry, in the lending industry, can return to the old days of just getting that money and getting the government to buy, right? Now that we know that the monetary system is divided, now that we know that, it gets deep once you have understanding of how things work. It's like, wow, you see it so clear. Let's continue and finish this video up.
Now here's the connection back to Bitcoin. Bitcoin operates outside all of this. It is not tied to fiscal policy, monetary policy, banking stability, or housing liquidity. That's why it can rise fast and crash hard. Bitcoin lives in speculation. National money systems live in structure. So here's the simple takeaway. Bitcoin may exist as a private asset, a speculative investment, or a digital commodity, but it cannot replace the dollar, government bonds, or reserve banking, because reserve banking requires stability, control, and legal authority. Bitcoin provides none of those, and that is why Bitcoin will always crash, not because it's useless, but because it is not designed to carry a nation.
Well, there you go. Just recently, our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, said in a hearing, and I'm going to paraphrase, basically that Bitcoin is too volatile to be considered to be a reserve currency, right? So I've always said, I said it in simpler form, right? So this is how I said it. I said, listen, I don't think the central bank is just going to have control and just give it up after all these hundreds of years of having control. Like, they're not. Why would they just do that? Because something was invented that you thought they had no knowledge that it was being invented? Or why would that happen? Like, none of that made sense. So I said, I understand they're throwing around words like decentralized, this, that, and the third, but our monetary system still has to operate within the reins of governance, and government. So you need governance, which is going to come from the government, and there's no way in the world there's going to be no accountability at all. That just didn't make sense with me. But I do believe that I think it was an experiment, in my opinion, right? And it was one that could made and has made people wealthy. But I don't think Bitcoin is going to be the digital choice of currency in the future. The U.S. dollar the USA has a digital dollar, right? So we just have to wait and see. But the one thing that we pretty much know is it won't be Bitcoin. So I hope this video has helped in some sense, in one way or the other, to help you understand maybe some pieces that were not clicking, because it did for me, right? Anyway, if you did like the video, please hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel. You guys take it easy. Bye.